obviously, I'm going to get this out of the way first before I start this, but this is not the video that I wanted to make. But the original plan for this was that I was going to do a review of Super Punch-Out, and I was going to involve a Super Punch-Out runner. But there was unfortunately a lot of scheduling issues with that, so I couldn't do that, obviously. So I decided to move on to something else. And I have 2 videos in the work right now. They're very big, but the problem is they're going to take a lot more time. Even now, neither of them are ready. It would still be a minimum of 2 weeks, but it's definitely going to take a lot more than 2 weeks, honestly. It'd take a lot more than that. So I decided to actually start posting in the meantime, obviously, because I wanted to actually start posting again. But I wanted to do something, that I liked. And I do like hockey, obviously. I'm a Canadian, I have to like hockey. That's just how it works. Now, I'm going to admit, I'm not an avid fan. I'm more of a casual fan. I kind of keep track of the standings. I kind of know what these teams are all about, But I'm going to be the first to admit, I don't know everything about these teams. I'm not the kind of person who knows all the players on every team, all the injuries, all the statistics. I don't know that. But I'm going to do the best I can to make sure. I mean, I'm not an idiot, obviously, but, going to try my best here. So, you know what? I'm just going to get right into it. So, I'm going to start with the Western Conference, and that's just because I think the Eastern Conference is a lot more interesting. The Western is a bit less interesting. There is one interesting matchup that I do want to talk about, but we'll get to that later. So, this first one, Colorado versus Nashville. We'll get the stats up here. Now, obviously, on paper, you're seeing, Colorado is much better than Nashville. I mean, beating them in every category except for power play, but I mean, it's a 0.2 difference. I don't think that's really going to matter at the end of the day. But, but this is, I'm going to say this a lot, but this is one of those matches where it seems like on paper, Colorado should definitely beat Nashville, but my problem is that Nashville is much more experienced in playoffs. I don't think Colorado is a playoff team. And what I mean by that, because you're going to hear me say that a lot, is that I feel like there's a difference between playoff teams and regular season teams, and that is the playoff team is going to make the playoffs, they're going to get far, they're going to do good, and regular season teams are going to be those teams that do really good in the regular season, and on paper it seems like they're really going to make it far in the playoffs, but then they're just not that good. And Colorado is definitely one of those teams where, I feel like on paper they should definitely be able to win this match, but I just don't see it happening. Just because Colorado, I don't think is a playoff team. So I'm going to go with Nashville here just because of that. Now, obviously, I think Colorado could definitely win this. I mean, they have the best record in the Western Conference, but I'm just not confident in their ability. Number of games. I have no clue how to do that, so I'm just going to move on. So Minnesota versus St. Louis. This is one that I'm very interested in because Minnesota is definitely a team. It's probably the one team in the Western Conference that I would say has a really good chance of making the Cup playoffs. But the problem is St. Louis. I think if any Western Conference team is going to win the Cup, it's going to be either one of those two. It's going to be Minnesota or St. Louis. Because I think both of them have the potential to do it at the end of the day. But this is a hard matchup because I want Minnesota to win, but you look at the regular season series and they just St. Louis has just had Minnesota's number. Not they're close matchups, obviously. Two of them were overtime. The one that wasn't overtime was 2 games. They're not huge wins, but obviously Minnesota 2 points, but these are 2 teams that are very close. St. Louis has a better goals against, a better power play, and a better penalty kill. But in terms of actual offense, they are so close, and in points, obviously very close. I really want Minnesota to win, but I just feel like the Blues are going to take it. They're a really good playoff team at the end of the day, and once again, they've just been able to consistently beat Minnesota in the regular season. Now, obviously, regular season is much different from the playoffs. But at the end of the day, you got to kind of acknowledge that, It's now Calgary versus Dallas. a bit of a rough one. Dallas was, I believe, the last team to make it into the playoffs, kind of getting in there at the end. Um, but Calgary, similar to like Colorado, you know, they're just not really a big playoff team, you know. I mean, this reminds me of the year St. Louis won the cup. You know, it was Calgary, and they were the first place team, and they still lost the wild card. You know, I mean, it was almost a sweep. I believe it was a 4-1 series. Um, and another thing I want to address is that the Pacific Division. There's no way around this. The Pacific Division just sucks. The Pacific Division sucks. It is not good. Um, I mean, they're easily the worst division in not even just in the Western out of the Western Conference, but in the entire league. They're easily just not that good. So, I mean, let's look at the stats real quick. Let's look at the stats. Calgary has a big point difference, big goals per game difference, good goals against difference. Power play is actually pretty similar. Um, Penalty kill, they've gotten beat. I hate seeing Joe Pavelski being the leading scorer because I'm a Sharks fan. But, you know, it's... I mean, Calgary is definitely a good team, but at the end of the day, it is that playoff team difference, you know? I'm just not confident in Calgary. And it is difficult. This is definitely one of those ones where I feel like it could go either way, you know? I think these two matchups are definitely kind of set in stone. The Colorado one is a bit iffy, but I've pretty confident Nashville, St. Louis. But this is a pretty difficult one. It's not the most difficult one in here, but I definitely think this is. I am gonna go with Dallas though. At the end of the day, I'm just not confident in Calgary's abilities. You know, Edmonton the Kings. This is another interesting matchup. I don't particularly keep track of either of these teams. Unfortunately, I mean, obviously I know about the Edmonton Oilers. They're a very good offensive team. You can see that in the goals per game difference. But goals against pretty similar. Power play, big difference. Penalty kill, also a bit better. Connor McDavid, at the end of the day, this is one of those ones where I think the statistics do tell the story. I think Edmonton is okay. Oh, this is where I predicted. Okay, I was wondering what it was about. So now I get to do this. 6 games is usually a pretty safe bet for any series. It's the most amount of games. It's the games most series go to. So I think it's gonna be Nashville in 6, Dallas. I don't know. I think this is definitely one of those ones where it's gonna go to 7. I think it's gonna be a brutal 7-game series. Minnesota. I think it's gonna be 5. You know, it's just one of those ones again where I'm not go with 6. Yeah, I'll be a pussy. I'll go with 6. The safe bet for Edmonton. So I'll submit those. But I think it is one of those ones where 6. I mean, this is one of those situations where the Kings haven't been in for a while. They haven't really been a good playoff team in a really long time, you know. And Edmonton is such a good offensive team. You look at, you know, I mean, obviously you've got Connor McDavid, Draisaitl, stuff like that. We're going to move on to the Eastern Conference. This is a very interesting matchup, actually. But I actually think that this is very similar to the Western Conference matchup. Where on paper, like, you're looking at this huge difference in statistics. But, like, the Panthers, the problem is their playoff history is terrible. It's similar to Colorado, where they're just not a playoff team. It was the same last year. They were a really good team last year, but you know, they didn't win. And Washington has been consistently been really good in the playoffs. And like, I think this is very similar to the Nashville one, where I think the playoff experience is going to beat out the Florida Panthers, even though everything on paper says that Florida's going to win. Now this, we're going to come back to this one. We'll come back to that. Carolina versus Boston. Looking at the statistics, these teams are pretty close, except for in penalty kill. It was a pretty big advantage for Carolina. Obviously points, but looking at these teams, there's not a huge difference. They scored Brad Marchand. Carolina's always been pretty good this season. Number one in their division. A really strong team. Boston having a lot of playoff experience, definitely. This is another difficult one. This is a really difficult decision. But I'm going to go with what my heart says here. I'm going to go with Boston. I think Boston is going to win. This is a fun one because I actually have a bet in real life about how this goes. I think the Rangers are going to win. I'm going to put that out there. And my friend is a Penguins fan, so obviously he thinks the Penguins are going to win. And looking at the analysis, Penguins big advantage in goals per game, but that's to be expected. It's the Penguins. Pretty close in goals against. Power play big advantage to the Rangers, and penalty kill pretty good advantage to the Penguins. Sidney Crosby, that obviously it's going to be Artemi Panarin for the Rangers. But I think looking at the regular season series. Pittsburgh did beat the Rangers once, but then the past 3 games, it's just been New York. And I think the Rangers can indeed beat the Penguins this year. This is... Let's look at the statistics for this. Let's look at the statistics first of all. Pretty close in points. Goals per game. Pretty good advantage actually to Toronto. Goes against, big advantage to Tampa. Power play. So a lot of advantages for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The only thing they don't really beat them in is goals against. Obviously, Austin Matthews, Steven Stamkos. No real surprises for leading scorer. But this is both difficult and very much not difficult. Because obviously the Toronto playoff history is horrible. I want Toronto to win. I really do, but you look at last year, a 3-1 series lead against Montreal, and they still couldn't get it. And it's so frustrating to watch because everything on paper says they should be able to win. Everything on paper says they should make at least conference finals here. But you look at it in the playoff sense, and Toronto just has not been good in the playoffs, period. And I think, here's the thing, that Montreal series, it was in North Division, and the North Division is easily one of the weakest divisions I've ever seen. Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto. Toronto was easily the best team in that division for regular season. No question, but looking at it like this, I just don't think Toronto's going to be able to do it. I would be happy if they did, but at the end of the day, this is a 7-game. It's going to be very close. 6, I think that's safe. This is 7 just because Toronto always managed to push it to the maximum amount of games. Even when it was 5 games, they managed to push it to 5. It was amazing. I think a lot of them are going to be 7-game series for the Eastern Conference. I think a lot of them are going to be close games. I do think Boston's going to win in 6, though. So, now we get to division. This is very interesting. Nashville versus St. Louis. Looking at it, there's a huge advantage for they beat the Nashville in every single category. Goals per game, huge advantage. Goals against, pretty close. Power play also pretty close. Penalty kill, Man, and I'm pretty confident this is going to be the statistics of the story here. I'm fairly confident in the Blues. I mean, as I said earlier, I think that Minnesota, St. Louis, these are probably two of the best playoff teams for the Western Conference. You know, and Dallas versus Edmonton. This is also a pretty interesting matchup. Looking at the statistics, huge advantage for Edmonton on goals per. Goals against very, very close, so pretty much the same on that. Power play and penalty kill, beating them in every part. This is difficult for me just because, once again, I'm not confident in Edmonton's playoff ability, you know? I think. This is a really difficult one. I'm gonna come back to this one. I'm just gonna go here. Just being a wuss, obviously. Once again on paper here, but yeah, goes against, goes to him. I mean, they're beating them in every. I mean, penalty kill is pretty much negligible, but goals per is also pretty negligible. But like at the end of the day, they are beating them in every single category, and I think the Washington Capitals are kind of starting to fall off. And it's hard to bet against Tampa. They've won the last 2 years in a row. It is hard. So I'm gonna go with Tampa here. And they just because they definitely seem like the better team in this scenario. Boston versus New York. I'm pretty confident in Boston here. New York's got a goals against advantage, power play advantage, bit of a penalty kill advantage, but I'm just not confident in the Rangers in terms of a playoff series. Boston has been in the playoffs for so long, and they consistently do very well. So I'm pretty confident that Boston is going to be able to follow their good performance. So now we come back to this one. I'm going to go with what my head says, and I'm going to go with Dallas in this scenario. I'm going to go with Dallas. And since there's no games here, I'm just going to go with St. Louis in 6. And this is going to be Dallas. I'm going to go with Dallas in 6. This is going to be Tampa in 7. And then Boston in 5. So, this is the conference finals. And I'm still very confident in the Blues. I'm going to be honest. I'm still very, very confident in the Blues' ability. Really just seem like a good team for, right now. I mean, look at the matchups here. I mean, you look at it, and they've kind of got small advantages over each other, but nothing too heavy. They got almost the same points. I mean, offensively, Tampa Bay's better. Defensively, the Bruins are better. It's hard to go with Boston here because I don't want to just do a playoff final where it's the same as, I think it was 2008, no, 2019. 2019. I don't want to go with one where it's the same as that. But, looking at the bracket, I'm confident that Boston is going to be able to beat Tampa, and I'm confident in the rest of this, so I got to go with Boston here. So a repeat of 2019 is what I'm going with. Just watch all of these matchups are wrong. Oh, I would hate this so much if that's actually what happened. But playoff final. Who is going to win between these two teams? I mean, huge advantage in goals per game for St. Louis. Goals against, big advantage here. There's so many advantages for this. I mean, really, they only beat them in goals against, and it's a pretty small difference at the end of the day. So, I am going to go with St. Louis for this matchup. I think they are going to win. Looking at this bracket, I think they're going to win. How many goals in the final series? these are not really big goal scoring teams, so I'm not going to go with a really big thing. I think 6 games will be it. I think an average of 5 goals, so 5 times 6, about 30, somewhere in the 30 area. I'll go with 34. I'll go with that. So this is my bracket. Once again, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think this changes much if Minnesota wins. I think that's the one thing. If Colorado wins, I'm still confident the Blues can beat Colorado. If the Kings win, I'm very confident Dallas can beat King. Calgary versus Edmonton, I would probably go with Edmonton here. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm confident St. Louis can beat any of these teams. Any of these teams, I'm confident St. Louis can beat. If Minnesota wins, I think it's going to be Minnesota in the conference finals. I mean, Minnesota versus Dallas would be pretty interesting to see, actually. I wonder what that looks like. Hold up, let me actually go with this. Let me actually check the matchup for this. Actually, this is kind of difficult because you look at the goals per game. Obviously, Minnesota a huge advantage here, but they're like pretty close in everything else except for penalty kill. Dallas is a big advantage there, but I would go with Minnesota here. But obviously, I'm just gonna go with. Hey, no. 34. Yeah. We fixed everything, luckily. But I'm confident. I think the winner of this series is going to be in the finals. And it's a pretty bold prediction, but it's my prediction. The East is a pretty interesting one because I think it could go a lot of different ways. I think this is definitely one. I think no matter what happens here, I think whatever team wins the Toronto-Tampa series is going to be in the conference finals. Because I'm fairly confident Toronto can beat either Washington or Florida, and I'm confident Tampa can beat either of these teams. It's an interesting one. I think Carolina could also be. So I think this is another one where I think the winner of this series is going to go on to the conference finals. So I think it's going to be either these teams. I think it's going to be these 4 teams. I don't think these 4 are going to be making it into the conference finals at the end of the day. So it is really weird for me because I feel like I'm just copying 2019, but I'm confident in the Blues at the end of the day. I'm very confident in the Blues. I think that out of all the teams in the Western Conference, they've got the best chance. And yeah. Could the Blues beat Tampa if Tampa wins? Let's look at that matchup. Goals per game, bit of an advantage to the Blues. Goals against, but these are kind of small advantages. I don't think these are huge, but I'm still pretty sure. Yep. I just kept clicking on the Blues when I wasn't working. I was like, oh yeah, because I'm not changing anything. But I'm just gonna switch it back. I think Blues are gonna win this year. And it just occurred to me that at the beginning of the video, I just said the Western Conference isn't going to win a cup, but people change. Sure, people can change in a 20-minute span, but you know what? People change, alright? Calm down. To be fair, I said that before working out my bracket, and working out everything, I'm pretty confident in the Blues. I've said that like 8 times now, so you obviously know that, so I'm just going to submit. So that is it. I know it's not a very exciting video for after being gone for like probably 3-4 months now, obviously. But I promise you those big videos are in the works. It's just going to be a long while, and I wanted to get back into posting. Because I didn't want to leave for that long. It's probably going to be like a month or 2 before I could even post one of them, let alone both. So at the end of the day, I didn't want to leave for that long and, just randomly drop that on you. So, hopefully you like this video, and hopefully my bracket doesn't get destroyed within 5 seconds. So, I hope you have a good day, and see you later.